You grab a shrimp. You slit the back with a knife. You dig around for that dark little vein, tearing the meat, losing half the shrimp down the drain. Stop. You never needed the knife. One toothpick pulls that vein out clean in about 3 seconds, whole and unbroken, without cutting the shrimp at all. This is how the plain folk did it for generations, back when nothing in the kitchen got wasted and no drawer held a single gadget. Stay with me, because by the end I'll show you a trick I found written down in an 1877 household manual that changed how I clean every shrimp I touch. And you already own the only tool you need. Let me tell you how I got here, because I did not start out smart about this. For years I cleaned shrimp the way the back of the bag told me to. Knife in one hand, cold shrimp in the other. I'd slice down the back, deep, because I was afraid I'd miss the vein. Then I'd rinse and rinse under the tap, watching bits of shrimp swirl away, telling myself that was normal. I remember one night in particular. I had bought 2 pounds of beautiful jumbo shrimp for a family dinner. Special occasion. By the time I finished butterflying every single one with that knife, my cutting board looked like a crime scene, and a good handful of the meat had shredded so badly I couldn't even skewer it. I served less than I bought. I paid for 2 pounds and put maybe 1.5 pounds on the table. I thought that was just the cost of cooking shrimp. I thought everybody lost a little. That's the lie I want to pull out of your head today. The same way you're about to pull that vein out of a shrimp. Because here is what nobody told me. The dark line down the back of a shrimp is not a vein at all. It is the digestive tract. It is the gut. And it comes out in one piece if you lift it, instead of chasing it with a blade. The knife was never the tool for the job. The knife was the problem. Let me back up and tell you why I trust the old way now, when I used to laugh at it. I grew up thinking new was better. Newer knife, newer peeler, newer little plastic deveining tool shaped like a claw. I bought one of those, $3.49. It snapped the second week. I bought another. That one rusted at the hinge. I have probably spent more on shrimp gadgets over the years than I'd like to say out loud, and every one of them ended up in a drawer or a landfill. Then a few years back, I spent time around some plain families, the kind who cook for 12 people 3 times a day with no electric anything on the counter. And I watched an older woman clean a whole bowl of shrimp faster than I could clean 4. She wasn't using a knife. She wasn't using a claw. She had a plain wooden toothpick, and she moved like she'd done it 10,000 times, because she had. I asked her to slow down and show me, and what she showed me is so simple you're going to be a little angry nobody told you sooner. I know I was. Here is the whole thing. You take your shrimp, shell still on or shell off, doesn't matter, this works both ways. You look at the back, the curved outer edge, the top of that C shape. You count down from the head end. Second segment, third segment, right where the shell plates overlap. That's your spot. You take a plain round toothpick. You slide the tip in crosswise, underneath the vein, going across the back, not along it. Then you lift, gentle and slow, straight up. And that dark thread lifts right up out of the meat with it. You catch it, you pull, and the whole vein slides out in one long piece. 3 seconds. No cut, no shredding, no rinsing bits down the drain. The shrimp stays whole and round and perfect, exactly the shape it's supposed to be when it hits the pan. The first time I did it myself, I actually laughed out loud in my kitchen, alone, like a crazy person, because it worked on the first try, and the second, and every one after that. 2 pounds of shrimp, cleaned in the time it used to take me to butcher a handful. But here's the part that stopped me cold, and this is where I have to be honest with you about something. When I went looking to see if this was just one family's habit or something older, I started pulling up old cookbooks and household guides, and I found it. Not the exact toothpick, but the principle, written down again and again more than 100 years ago. Lifting, not cutting. removing the tract whole so the flesh stays intact. It was common knowledge. Ordinary. The kind of thing a mother taught a daughter without thinking twice. And somewhere along the way, we lost it. Somewhere along the way, we were handed a knife and a $3 plastic claw and told that was the modern way, the better way, the clean way. And we believed it. I believed it for years. Ask yourself something. Who benefits when you cut your shrimp instead of lifting it? Who benefits when you believe you need a special little tool for a job a toothpick does better? Not you. You lose meat every time you cut. You lose money every time that plastic tool breaks. You lose the shrimp you paid for, a little at a time. Thousands of shrimp over a lifetime of cooking. Somebody sold you the harder way. And they sold it to you as progress. I'll come back to who. Because it goes further than a shrimp, and it made me look at half the things in my kitchen drawer differently. But first, I want you to understand why the toothpick works so much better than the blade. Because once you understand it, you'll never reach for the knife again. The vein sits just under the surface of the shell side, the outer curve. It is not buried deep. When you cut down into the back with a knife, you're slicing through good muscle to reach something that was practically sitting on top. You're doing surgery to remove a splinter. The toothpick works because wood grips. A metal pick or a knife tip is smooth and slick, and the vein slides right off it. But a wooden toothpick has a slightly rough grain, a little texture, and that texture catches the thin membrane of the tract and holds it just long enough for you to lift the whole thing out without it snapping. That is not folklore. That is friction. That is why the old-timers used wood and not a needle. And the placement matters. Second or third segment from the head. That's where the tract runs closest to the surface and where the shell plates give you a natural gap to slide the tip under. Go too far toward the tail and the vein sits deeper and thinner and it'll break on you. Right up near the head, second or third joint, and it comes out like pulling a thread from a seam. Now here's a question I had, and I bet you have it too. Do you even need to remove it at all? Honest answer. On small shrimp, that tract is so fine you can eat it and never know. It won't hurt you. Cooking kills anything in it. But on the big ones, the jumbo and the colossal, that tract is full of grit and sand, the mud the shrimp was feeding on, and you can absolutely taste it. Gritty, bitter, it'll ruin an expensive shrimp. So on the big ones, the ones you paid the most for, that's exactly where removing it matters most, and exactly where the knife wastes the most meat. Think about that. The bigger and more expensive the shrimp, the more you were losing with the old method. You were paying premium prices to do the most damage. I want you to picture your last shrimp dinner. Picture the cutting board after. All those little shreds and flakes stuck to the wood. All that meat you rinsed away. Added up over a year. Over 10 years. That's real food. That's real money you handed over and then washed down the sink because someone taught you the slow, wasteful way and called it correct. Therefore, let me show you the next layer, because cleaning is only half of what that toothpick habit fixed for me. Once I stopped cutting my shrimp, something else changed. The shrimp cooked better, and it took me a while to figure out why. When you butterfly a shrimp with a knife, you open it up. You expose all that inside surface to the heat. And shrimp cooks fast. Faster than almost anything. A butterflied shrimp overcooks in seconds because there's more surface hitting the hot pan. It goes from tender to rubbery before you can blink. That's the other thing I used to blame on myself. Tough, chewy shrimp. I thought I couldn't cook. Turns out I was sabotaging them before they ever hit the heat. A whole shrimp, cleaned with a toothpick, stays round. It holds its moisture. It curls into that tight C shape that tells you it's perfectly done, and it stays juicy inside because the flesh was never opened up and dried out. The old way of cleaning didn't just save the meat. It saved the texture. It made the shrimp taste like what I was paying for. Here's a number that stuck with me. Food scientists at a couple of land-grant universities have looked at shrimp yield and cooking loss, And shrimp can lose a real chunk of their weight to moisture in cooking, a good 15 to 25% even when you do it right. Now add the meat you shredded off with a knife on top of that. You can easily be throwing away a third of what you paid for. A third. For every 3 pounds you buy, you might as well leave 1 pound at the store. I don't know about you, but I'm not in a position to hand a grocery store money for food I'm going to throw in the sink. And this is where I started getting a little angry, because it's not an accident. Walk down the kitchen aisle of any big store. Count the gadgets. There's a tool for deveining shrimp, a tool for slicing strawberries, a tool for cutting an apple, a tool for pitting a cherry, a tool for taking corn off the cob. Little plastic and metal things, $3, $5, $9 each, and every single one of them does a job that a knife or a spoon or a toothpick did just fine for 200 years. Somebody figured out a long time ago that they could sell you a solution to a problem you never had, and to do it, they had to convince you that the simple way, the free way, the way your great-grandmother used, was old-fashioned and dirty and wrong. They had to make you distrust your own hands. The plain communities never fell for it, not because they're smarter than us, but because they never let the catalog into the kitchen in the first place. They kept the old knowledge because they never had a reason to throw it away, and that is exactly why their methods are worth stealing. If this way of thinking about the kitchen speaks to you, I want to mention something I put together that goes much deeper than any single video can. It is called Amish Kitchen, and along with Deep Roots and Amish Kitchen Mastery, it is a collection of the plain methods, the forgotten ratios, the no-gadget habits I have spent years gathering from old household guides and plain family kitchens, just like the one where that older woman showed me the toothpick. If you want the full picture, not just one trick but the whole way of working, the details are in the description below. Now, I know what some of you are thinking, and I want to talk to you directly for a minute. Maybe you're sitting in a small apartment, no garden, no root cellar, no big farm kitchen with a dozen mouths to feed. Maybe you're thinking this is nice for people with land and time, but it's not for you. You've got a tiny galley kitchen, one drawer of odds and ends, and a bag of frozen shrimp in the freezer. Good. This next part is for you especially, because everything I've told you needs exactly nothing that a farm has and an apartment doesn't. You need a shrimp, you need a toothpick, that's the entire equipment list, no board full of gadgets, no special tool, no counter space. You can do this standing over a paper plate on a card table in a studio apartment. And frozen shrimp, which is what most of us actually buy, is perfect for this. Here's a small thing that took me too long to learn. Don't fully thaw your shrimp before you clean them. Thaw them just to the point where they're bendable but still cold and firm, still a little icy. A fully thawed shrimp is soft and floppy and the vein tears easily. A shrimp that's still slightly firm from the freezer holds its shape, and that toothpick slides under the tract and lifts it clean because the meat is holding tension. Cold and firm is your friend. To thaw them to that point fast, put them in a bowl. Run cold tap water over them, not warm, cold, for about 5 minutes. They'll go from rock hard to perfectly workable, still cold, and you clean them right there over the sink. Start to finish, a whole bag, 10 minutes. No thawing overnight, no planning ahead, no gadget. And here's a bonus for the small kitchen, because I hate throwing anything away, and so should you. Those shells you're pulling off? Do not put them in the trash. Drop them in a pot with water, a little salt, whatever half an onion or bit of celery you've got, and simmer them for 20 minutes. You just made shrimp stock for free out of what everyone else throws away. Strain it, freeze it in a cup, and you've got the base for a soup or a rice dish that would cost you real money in a can or a box. The shell has more shrimp flavor in it than the meat does. The plain kitchen never wasted the shell, and neither should the apartment kitchen. That's the whole thing about this old knowledge. It scales down as easy as it scales up. It never needed the farm. It just needed hands and attention and the refusal to throw good things away. But I promised you something at the start. I told you about a household manual from 1877, and I told you it changed how I clean every shrimp I touch. I've been holding it back, and now you've earned it, because this is the piece almost nobody knows anymore. When I went digging into the old cookbooks and household guides, the ones from the 1800s, I kept finding instructions for preparing shrimp and prawns that never once mentioned cutting the back open. Not once. They talked about drawing the vein, drawing it, pulling it. And in one household guide from that era, laid out plain among the fish and shellfish instructions, was the detail I'd never seen anywhere in a modern kitchen. They didn't just remove the vein. They removed it before cooking by loosening the shell at the joint and drawing the tract out through the back with a fine sliver of wood or a bent pin in one motion, keeping the shrimp whole so it would, and I'm using their words, keep its form and its sweetness in the pot. Keep its form and its sweetness. 150 years ago, they already knew that cutting the shrimp cost you both the shape and the flavor. They wrote it down. It was ordinary knowledge. And here's the part that got me. They had a trick for the stubborn ones. Because you'll hit a shrimp now and then where the vein breaks part way, and you're left with half of it still inside. The old method for that is beautiful. You go to the tail end, the very last segment before the fan, and you find the tip of the tract there too, because it runs the whole length. You catch that end with your toothpick and draw from the bottom up. If it breaks at the top, you finish it from the bottom. 2 access points, head end and tail end, for one vein. So you never, ever have to cut into the back to chase a broken piece. You just work it from the other end. I tried it that very night on the ones that gave me trouble. Tail end, catch the tip, slow lift. Out it came, the rest of it, clean. 150 years old, and it solved the exact problem I'd been solving with a knife and a prayer my whole adult life. That's the thing that stays with me. This wasn't lost because it stopped working. It works perfectly. It was lost because it couldn't be sold. You cannot put a wooden toothpick in a good habit in a blister pack and hang it on a hook for $4.99. There's no money in teaching you to use something you already have. So it slipped out of the cookbooks and the gadget slipped in, and a whole country forgot that its own great-grandparents cleaned shrimp better with less. One family teaches the next. That's how it survived at all. Not in the stores, not in the glossy cookbooks, in the plain kitchens where nobody was buying anything, where an old woman shows a younger one over a bowl of shrimp, the same way one showed me, the same way I'm showing you right now. So here's what I want you to do the next time you cook shrimp. And I mean this week, not someday. Skip the knife. Skip whatever little plastic tool you've got rattling around in the drawer. Take one plain wooden toothpick. Thaw your shrimp just until they bend, but stay cold. Find the second or third joint down from the head. Slide the tip across, under the vein, and lift straight up, slow. Watch it come out whole. And if it breaks, go to the tail and draw the rest from the bottom. Then save your shells and make the stock. You'll clean a whole pound in a couple of minutes. Your shrimp will cook up round and tender instead of split and rubbery. You'll put every bit of what you paid for on the table. And you'll have done it with a tool that costs about a penny and a habit that's older than every gadget in the store put together. Here's what I really want you to feel, though, more than the trick itself. For years I thought I was a wasteful cook. I thought I was clumsy, that I couldn't clean shrimp right. That tough, rubbery shrimp was just my fault. It wasn't. I was handed a bad method and told it was the good one. The waste was never me. It was the way I was taught. And the moment somebody showed me the plain way, all of it fixed itself at once. You are not a wasteful cook either. You were just never shown the simple way, the way that got quietly swapped out for something you could be charged for. Taking it back is the most satisfying thing in the world, and it starts with one toothpick. If you're the kind of person who refuses to throw away good food, who's tired of gadgets that break and tips that don't work, who'd rather trust your own 2 hands than a blister pack on a hook, then you already think like the people who kept this knowledge alive. This is your kitchen. These are your habits now. So tell me one thing down in the comments, and be specific, because I read them. When you try the toothpick on your next batch, did the vein come out whole on the first shrimp, or did you have to work it from the tail end like the old manual says? Tell me which one. First shrimp, clean pull, or tail end rescue? I want to know how many of you get it on the very first try, because I did not, and I want to see if you're quicker than I was. And if you want more of these, the plain habits that got buried because nobody could sell them to you, come along with me. This is a whole community of people digging the old honest ways back out of the ground, one kitchen at a time. We're not here to sell you anything. We're here to take back what was quietly taken. Because the next one I've got for you is about keeping shrimp and every other bit of fresh fish from turning that gray mushy color in the fridge, using one thing the plain folk kept in a bowl on the counter that has nothing to do with a refrigerator at all. I found it in the same corner of the old records, and once you see it, you'll never store fish the way the package tells you to again. Bring your toothpick. I'll see you there. That toothpick trick works on every shrimp, but there's more than 3 seconds, lets me show. Inside the Amish kitchen circle, I pick up right where this video left off. Ask me your own question and a real person. Me answers you. You'd belong with home cooks just like you. Just point your phone's camera at the code on the screen. Cancel any time with one click.